The Roman army was the most fearsome and effective military force of the ancient world. With some 500,000 soldiers at its peak, it exercised control over a sprawling empire and conquered swathes of the ancient world, from Britain to Middle East. A highly advanced and meticulously structured machine, the Roman army was divided into legions and centurions. For Roman soldiers on the ground, life was arduous and expectations were high. Daily marches could cover around 30 miles. Errors were punished with violence, and despite the Roman army's success, the risk of death or injury was ever present. So I want to tell about 10 facts about life in the Roman army. There were two main classes of Roman soldiers. Firstly, there were legionaries, who were citizens of Rome and were highly respected soldiers. Members of the second class were auxiliaries, who were recruited from the fringes of the Roman Empire and beyond. They would have been paid less and were expected to do the riskier roles, like stand on the front lines during military advances and battles. The Roman army is thought to have contained roughly 500,000 soldiers at its peak. This huge number was made up of smaller units, made up of roughly 4,000–6,000 soldiers called legions. These legions were then made up of smaller units known as centuries, which probably consisted of around 80 men each. Centuries were ruled by a centurion. Centurions typically ruled by violence. They would carry a short stick or rod of wine and use it to beat unruly soldiers. In 13 AD, a centurion known as Lucilius was referred to by his men as Cede alternam, which translates to bring me another. This referred to his practice of breaking his rod over the soldier's back before demanding he be delivered a new stick. But mutinies were unheard of. Reaching breaking point at the hands of vicious disciplinarians, soldiers occasionally rebelled against their superiors. This happened amongst legions of Rhine in 14 AD, when soldiers attacked their centurions and turned their wine sticks on them. While it's difficult to convert denarii into modern currency, it's helpful to reflect the hierarchy of pay in the Roman army. In the 2nd century, new legionary recruits would receive the viaticum, which was typically 3 gold pieces or 75 denarii, paid and depended on rank. A 2nd century Roman papyrus suggests that auxiliary infantrymen were paid around 100 denarii a year, while their legionary equivalents received around 300. Moving up the hierarchy, centurions would receive at least 1,000 denarii, with the senior centurion receiving more like 15,000 a year. Roman legionaries typically wore a loria, which consisted of iron plates that covered the chest and shoulders. Helmets protected the head, neck, and cheeks. Weapons varied depending on the legionary's role, but foot soldiers would typically carry a wooden, rectangular shield and pilum, a dagger and sword. Auxiliary soldiers, on the other hand, had oval-shaped shields and wore tunics with chainmail rather than iron-plated armor. Before being dispatched on campaigns, new recruits would embark on around 4 months of rigorous training. This training program began with marching and progressed to sparring, weaponry training, and strategic exercises such as formation drills. By the time training was completed, soldiers would be able to march 20 miles a day in full of armor. Some new recruits took on Roman names, which were seen as a sign of pride. While the Roman army was a fearsome force that conquered huge swathes of the ancient world, it also served an administrative role. As the way by which the Roman state exercised its power over its lands, the Roman army was also responsible for collecting taxes, building structures like forts, viaducts and roads, policing the people and handling civil administration. In Roman Britain, for example, the Roman centurion Gaius Severus Emeritus oversaw the restoration of the Roman spas at Bath. Until the late 2nd century AD, Roman soldiers were forbidden by law from marrying. Nonetheless, surviving documents and tombstones suggest that many flaunted this rule, with even centurions and their higher echelons of the military hierarchy taking wives. Life on military campaigns was by all accounts arduous work. Soldiers would be expected to embark on either reasonable march or heavier march, which meant walking 20 or 30 miles respectively. After the day's march, soldiers would build a camp surrounded by a perimeter wall. They would sleep in leather tents with around 8 tent companions. The next morning they would destroy the perimeter wall and repeat the process again. Standard bearers would lead each legion into battle, displaying the unit's standard. Typically, when the front line was approaching 30 meters from the enemy's lines, soldiers would hurl their pilums and charge. A rear line would rain projectiles such as spears, arrows and stones down on the enemy. Sometimes a tortoise or testudo formation would be adopted. This was where a group of soldiers formed a barricade of shields around them to guard against enemy projectiles. If the battle was won, the cavalry would chase any enemy troops trying to flee. Prisoners might be taken, the dead would be checked for valuables, and their weapons would be seized. Thanks for attention and subscribe to get more videos. Support me with your likes and comments.